Hey everybody, Robert Wolfert here. Welcome to another episode of Random Linux Tools Explained. This is all about Linux command line tools. Linux command line tools you can use for your daily work at the Linux command line. And the challenge is for me, or there is a challenge for me, and the challenge is that I'm not prepared at all what tool I have to explain. Instead, a tool is chosen by a script randomly, and then I do my best to explain this tool to you, to show you what this tool can be used for, how you can use this tool, and if there are some things around the tool, some tips and tricks from my experience that are worth knowing it. So let's start directly with the first tool here. Let me share my screen. Here we are, and let's start the generator. So let's choose a tool. Let's have a look what it selects for today. Okay, today it's the tool userdel. So let's talk about the tool userdel. Okay, this is what we are talking about now at first. The first tool, userdel. Userdel is a tool for modifying user database, simply for deleting a user from the user database. To put this into context, we have local users on a system, and the local users on a system are defined within three files. We have three files for the local users. We have the file etc passwd, we have the file etc group, and we have the file etc shadow. And sometimes it can be useful, but only sometimes, to have a file named gshadow. Gshadow. So these three files are the files where the local users are defined in. We have the file etc passwd. Within this file there is a line for every defined user on the system. Then we have etc group with all the defined groups, and then we have etc shadow. This file contains the encrypted passwords for the user. And sometimes, or many years ago I would say, there was a time when someone created passwords for groups, and for this, or this is the main purpose of the file etc gshadow. But typically you won't use group passwords, so let's remove this file here from the list. So these are the three files used for defining local users. And if you wanna create a new user, let's have a look first into these files. Let's have a look via the less tool into the file etc passwd or passwd. You see one single line for every defined user. One single line. You see the user root here, you see the user daemon, bin, and so on. If I scroll to the bottom of the file, you see the user Robert, for instance here. This is the user I'm currently logged in as. So if we want to create a new user, we simply would use the tool useradd. Useradd is the tool to create a new user. It goes really fast. Let's say I want to create a new user test1. This is a new user. Okay, I need to be root for doing this. Surely, so call this via sudo useradd test1. Now a new user was created. So there was, or is, a new line within etc passwd containing the user test1. This is the new line, the last line of the file, by the way. Then we have a new line within etc shadow for the new user. the new user has no defined password yet, therefore this exclamation mark here in field number 2. And then we have a new line with an etc group. This new line contains the new group that was created for this user test 1. We're here on a Ubuntu system. The Ubuntu system follows the private group system, and the private group system, that means that every user we create belongs to its own group by default. Yeah, every user on a system has a default group or has a primary group. This is the group that is referenced directly within the etc-passwd file. Yeah, let's have a look. etc-passwd, this is the test1 user. This is the user ID, this 1003. And this field here, this is the group ID of the primary group of the user. That means if this field is directly within the etc-passwd file, there is no way to create a user without a primary group. Yeah, and there are two ways for sorting or organizing users within groups. The first is the private group system as we see it here. Yeah, the private group system means that every user that will be created will get its own group. Yeah, so we have the user test1. User test1 has its own group, also called test1. And then we have the public group system. If you are, for instance, on a SUSE system, then you will see the public group system, and there is a central group. The group is named users, and every user you create will by default belong to this users group. Yeah, you have a public primary group for every user. So these are the differences. Here we have a private group system, and therefore we see a newly created group within the file etc group, and this group has the same name as the user has. So, what you see is that the user we created has associated a home directory. This is the home directory /home/test1. Every user has a home directory by default within the directory /home. Let's have a look into the directory /home, and you see that there isn't a directory for this user. And there isn't a directory for the user test1 here. Only this field is filled with /home/test1, but there wasn't a directory created for the user. If we want to, or if we need a directory created for the user, and typically we want to, then let's create a user. Let's create a user 2, test2. Let's add a command line switch, this time the command line switch -m. -m stands for make directory, so that now the user looks again as the user test1 like this. Yeah, we have in etc-passwd the user ID 1004, and the home directory is referenced or is filled in, but this time the home directory was created. Home, this directory here, home test2, was created, and the ownerships are set accordingly for the user test2. So now if we use useradd -m, the new user is created, and a new directory for this user, new user is created. If we want to remove the user, then we use userdel. Yeah, currently we are talking about the tool userdel. So userdel can be used to remove a user test1. Now the user has gone. No, I need to call this via sudo again. Now the user is gone. User test1 has gone. Let's have a look. Grab test1 etc-passwd etc shadow etc group. Yeah. Let's do this via sudo, and you see nowhere is a reference left for the user test1. Even the group was removed. Let's do the same with the test2 user. Again, test2 user was removed from all these files, but we still have the home directory of the user test2. We still have the home directory of the user test2, and you see the ownerships of the home directory are still present. As an ownership for a file or a directory here, always a user ID is mentioned. Always a user ID, not the name of the user, but the user ID is filled in as the user, as the owner or as the owning group of a directory. And only if this user ID exists, then we see in output of ls-l the name of the user or the group of the user. If we want to remove a user and we know that we don't need this user and we don't need its home directory anymore, then we can remove a user together with its home directory via the command line switch -r. So now I need to remove this home directory of the user by myself. Test2, let's do this via sudo rm-rf. Now this directory was deleted. Let's create a third user. Sudo useradd -m test3. I want to create a directory for the user. Let's have a look. ls-l home. The user directory was created. Now let's remove the user test3 userdel, but this time with the command line switch -r, userdel -r, not Robert, but test3. And now the userdel command has deleted the home directory. Even if there were files within this directory, the directory was removed, and userdel also tried to remove a mail spool from the user, or the mail spool of the user, and this mail spool would be, if the user had one, mail and then the username, but this mail spool wasn't found here, and therefore only this informational output here. So if you want to remove a user, use userdel and use this with the command line switch -r to ensure that the home directory will be removed too. But keep in mind or pay attention that without any asking, the home directory will be removed completely without any content you have there. Okay, userdel for removing users, and every reference for the user or to the user will be removed from all these three files. We have the etc passwd or passvd, we have the etc group, or we have the etc shadow, and from all these files references to the user will be created or will be removed. So okay, this was the tool userdel. I hope it was clear what you can do with this tool. Let's go to the next one. Okay, mixing the tools, and the winner now is host. Okay. Let's talk about host. What can you do with the host command? The host command is a command for DNS. Host command is a tool for DNS resolutions. You can resolve a host name into an IP address. You can resolve an IP address into a host name back. You can do reverse lookups. You can do other DNS lookups for some types of, or for every type of resource record. Yeah. So let's try some things out here. The most easiest thing you can do is to call the host command directly with a name of a host. Yeah, for instance, google.com. Yeah. And you get an output. We get an output, many lines as an output here. We get the output which IP address is associated with the name google.com. And you see there are multiple IP addresses associated with the domain google.com. Yeah, so this is the IP version 4 lookup. Then we have the same thing for the IP version 6. Yeah, we see we have 4 IPv6 IP addresses associated with google.com. And we have, or we will get the information what are the responsible name servers for the domain google.com. And there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 responsible name servers. These name servers here has priorities. So if someone tries to mail someone at google.com, then the mail will first be handed over, or the mailer will try to hand over the email to this first mail exchanger, to the mail exchanger with the lowest priority or with the lowest number here. This is the highest priority. And if this mail exchanger doesn't respond, then the next one will be taken. This is this one, and then this one, and so on and so on. So the host command will by default try to give you all the IP for version 4 addresses, will give you all the IP version 6 addresses, and it will try to give you mail exchangers, the MX records. Let's try this out with something else. Let's try this out with www.google.com. www.google.com doesn't have any mail exchangers, because this isn't used as a mail domain. But we have again 6 IP version 4 addresses and 4 IP version 6 addresses. Which name server is asked by host? Host takes the system-wide configuration of of the name servers that should be used. The system-wide configuration of name servers is stored within this file, within the file etc/resolve.conf. This file shows you the name servers that shall be taken into account if you are searching for, if you want to do a DNS lookup. And what you see here is we are within an AWS environment. This is an EC2 instance, a virtual machine there. You see that there is a DNS resolver addressed via 172.31.02. If you want to ask a different name server, you want to test a name server, you don't want to just test if name resolving works on your system, you want to test a different name server, then you can do so with the host command too. Let's try to look up, for instance, the host yahoo.com, and let's do this via a different name server. Let's do this via the name server 8.8.8.8, for instance. Now the host command won't ask. Now the host command won't ask this IP address from my resource.conf, but host will ask directly this name server. This is the public name server, the public Google name server, and this name server gives me again the answer that we have here for yahoo.com 6 IP for version 4 addresses available and 6 version 6 addresses available too, and we have the mail exchanges. Yeah, so you can use the host command to ask your default resolver library on a system, and it means you ask the DNS servers mentioned within etc-resolve.conf, or you ask a name server you specify directly at the console or directly as a command line parameter here. Yeah. If you want to, you can specify what DNS records you are interested in. Let's say I'm only interested into this MX records. I'm only interested in this MX records. Then I can just use the host command to only get this type of records. Host-t stands for type. Host-t MX. Yeah. Please only give me the MX records of yahoo.com, and you see these are the free MX records of yahoo.com. Yeah. Or let's say I'm only interested in the IPv4 or IP version, IPv4 addresses. These are the A records. If you are into DNS, in the DNS configuration, you know it perhaps. These are the A records, and if we want to see only the IPv6 addresses, then we simply ask the host command for the quad A records, and this gives you then the IPv6 addresses. And so you can get every record type that is available. Yeah, let's try if there is a TXT record, for instance. Yes, there is one. Yeah, an SPF record, a Facebook domain verification record, and so on. TXT records are available, and you can resolve IP addresses back into names with the host command. If you are into DNS, you know, if you want to, for instance, let's take this IP address here, and we want to resolve this back into a DNS name, then this means that you need to ask for the PTR record, for the pointer record. This is the reverse lookup, and you need to ask for a PTR record of the 25.143.6.74 point in addr.arpa. There is a special domain, a special TLD, ARPA, second level domain in-addr, and within this domain there are all the pointer records stored, and the pointer records are stored in a reverse order, this is the IP address in the reverse order. So if I want to know a name for an IP address or a name that is associated with an IP address, I would have to reverse the IP address and append the in-addr.arpa domain, and I need to ask for the PTR record, or the host command can do this for me. I can just write the IP address forward in a normal way. Yeah, so the IP address was the 74.6.143.25. Yeah, and if the host command sees that there is an IP address as a parameter, then the host command does the resorting and appending the special domain for me. Yeah, I don't need to search explicitly for a PTR record for some wired name. Yeah, I simply can use the host command to let resolve an IP address backward to a DNS name. Yeah, so this is the purpose of the host command. Yeah, simply contact the DNS server, ask for a special record you are interested in, or just try if your local DNS resolution framework works, if everything within etc-resolve.conf is working perfectly. And you can use the host command to reverse look up an IP address into a host name, and by default, if you simply call the host command without a record to request, only with a name, then the host command will give you all the available IP version 4 addresses, all the available IP version 6 addresses, and all the mail exchangers if available. Okay, so this is the host command. If you're interested, there are some other commands for handling DNS lookups. There is the ns-lookup tool. You may know this tool from a Windows system. Perhaps this is a deprecated tool and really old legacy tool here. And then there is a dig tool if you are deep within DNS and you want to do much more about this, you want to see TTLs, for instance, then use the dig command for doing these DNS queries. Okay, so this was the command host. Okay, we have some time left, so let's go to a third command here. Let's go to a third command here, and the third command is, let's go into tools, and the third command is showstool.sh. Fresh coffee. The winner is nsupdate. Okay, we have talked about DNS. Host can be used to ask a DNS server for some records, and nsupdate is a tool. Okay, I forgot to update the banner here. Sorry. Before nsupdate we talked about host. Now nsupdate. nsupdate is a tool that can be used to update DNS entries. And nsupdate is a tool I have used primarily within scripts, directly within scripts, to update DNS records. For instance, you boot up a system, and the system you boot up shall register itself into DNS. Then you need nsupdate, or you can use nsupdate for this. So the system takes its IP address, contacts the name server, and then updates a record. You can update any record you want via nsupdate. There is a protocol for updating records. You just contact a DNS server and say, there is a record called XYZ, and I want to update this record to the following value, or I just want to add a record, and so on. For this to work, you need credentials. I would say you need credentials. You need trust between the client that calls nsupdate and the server. This can be done via keys within the DNS. Or this can be done only via IP addresses. So you have a DNS server somewhere running, and you say, okay, if an update request comes from this single IP address or from this network, trust them, update the record accordingly. nsupdate is a tool I cannot really show here to you because I don't have a running DNS server at hand with a dynamically configured DNS zone. But if you need to, you can use nsupdate to update records, to add records, to remove records on a remote DNS server. Yeah, this is nsupdate. Typically, you need to authenticate yourself. You do this most of the time with a key name, and the secret is something like a username and a password, or you have stored the whole thing within a key file, or the server, the DNS server, simply trusts you because you are coming from a dedicated IP address. Okay, so this is the nsupdate. What is the nsupdate tool used for? Okay, if you have any questions for this, please put it into the comments. And let's today take a fourth tool. Mixing the tools again, and again coffee. I have a lot of coffee today. Okay, the winner is tag. Let's at last talk about the tag command. What can the tag command be used for? The tag command is the command that is the cat command written backward. So if I write cat backwards, I simply type tag. And the idea behind this from the developers of the tool is that the cat command is the command that gives you out, it prints you out a data stream or a file from the first line to the last one. And the tag command does the same in the reverse manner. It prints out a file or a data stream reverse. First the last line and then the second last line and so on. It prints out all the lines in reverse order. Let me show you this. Let's take a file. Let's take the file list.txt. I have here a file list.txt with some lines in it. Let's print out this with cat. This is the first line, the second line, the third line, and so on. And now let's print out this via tag. And you see the last line is the first line that was printed out at the second last, and so on. So we have reversed the lines. Tag can be used not only to reverse the lines of a file, but also to reverse the lines of a data stream. Let's say we have the output of something, the output of df-h, to show me all my mounted disks on a system and their fill level and so on. And now let's reverse this data stream. Tag can reverse data streams by simply feeding the output of a command to the tag command. And now the lines are printed out reverse. Let's say I have a list of files. ls gives me a list of files. And ls can give me the list of files sorted by size, for instance. Let's sort the files by size. You can do this with an uppercase S. Uppercase S sorts the files by size. And now let's prove this by appending the -l command line switch for showing the details for every file. And you see, they are really sorted by size. This is the biggest file here, the demo log, and the smallest file is the file hello.sh here. So ls-s sorts by size, and by default it prints out the biggest file, the largest file as the first one, and the smallest file as the last one. And if we want, we can now reverse this data stream with the tag command. I want to see the biggest file as the last file. The same could be accomplished by simply telling the ls command, reverse the order. The ls command knows the command line switch -r for reversing the order itself. But tag is a general way for reversing the lines within the data stream. Tag is a cool proof for the .div acronym for do one thing and do it well. Tag can only reverse things in a data stream or from a file, but tag can do it in different ways. For instance, you can use tag to reverse a data stream not based on lines, but you can take a different separator, a completely different separator, where tag shall reverse the data stream that's coming in. For instance, simply take a separator. Let's print something out. Let's print something out. A colon B colon C colon D. And now let's try to reverse this. I don't want to see A, B, C, D. I want to see D, C, B, A. The other way around. Let's reverse this just by calling tag and say to the tag, please reverse at the separator colon. And now we have some fields. We have a field. The last field is the field D. The last field isn't the field D. The last field is the field, or is the value D, and after then line break. D plus line break is the last field. The second last is C, then B, then A. So if I reverse this, tag-C colon, the first thing that will be printed out is the last field here, D, and then the new line. And then we have a C, then we have a B, then we have an A. If you call echo this way, that you say we don't want to see a new line at the end, you will see that it is now written in this way of the tag command. The last was the D, the second last was the C colon. As you see, the tag command here takes really the colon as the part of the thing that should be printed out. So the first that should be printed out, the first part is C, then D, then C colon, then B colon, then A colon. And you see it here within the help output of the tag command. You can even use regular expression. You can use regular expressions for defining what's the separator. So that if you have a JSON file, for instance, you can reverse a list or an XML file or something like this. You can really use regular expressions to do the cutting of the pieces that should be reversed. And to give really the things, all the fields in a reverse order, including the separator here, we just need to add the -b command line switch. The -b command line switch writes the separator then in front of the output instead after the output. Okay, this is what a tag command can be used for simply reversing things. You can do some really fancy things here with the help of these B-R-S command line switches, but typically you will use tag to reverse lines, and this really easily print something out, generate some output, pipe this to the tag command, and the tag command will reverse the lines you have here. Okay, so that was it for today. Today is Thursday. See you tomorrow, I think. Tomorrow I will have another live stream for, I think, explaining remote randomly selected command line tools. Have a nice day. See you at the next time.